Confusing? Have you been looking for a course that teaches you the very basics of information systems? You're in the right place. Hi, my name is Al, information security professional. It is also ideal in this course. Well, we'll take a look at the how they think and how they operate cyber attacks. We'll also cover a wide of information security, such as information security at the workplace, and either as an information security professional. Yes, I have been involved in different experience and qualifications to teach this course. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for signing up for the course. And before we get things rolling on how best to take this course. So this course is meant to be an introduction into the world of cybersecurity and technical course. So if you are interested in becoming a cybersecurity professional or have gained well-rounded knowledge, it is still important that you do further reading. If you intend on going to the technical aspects of information security or cybersecurity, don't just ignore them. There might be a few about any of the topics, or if you have any suggestions on how to improve the course. Once again for enrolling in the course, and let's get started. between information security and cybersecurity. They are used all the time, they are used interchangeably. So, is there actually a real difference? Well, there is. There is, and the difference here being that while cybersecurity deals mostly, of course, the internet, information from being online, it could even be physical threats such as criminals trying to break into an office to steal hard drives or even computers. That's basically information security is under information security. Cybersecurity instances in such scenarios, or where you have a company or a business that needs to protect its information or its data for. And again, really, they're both so closely related that no one is going to judge you if you said in. So thank you so much for watching, and let's move on to the very next topic. Let's talk about the CIA triad. And no, I am not referring to the Central Intelligence Agency. I am referring to a model that is designed to guide every information security policy or cybersecurity policy of an organization. So behind every security policy, you have three core fundamental parts which makes up the CIA triad. So what exactly is this CIA triad? Well, the C stands for confidentiality, I stands for integrity, and the A stands for availability. So what exactly do these three things mean? Well, next up is integrity, and this ensures that data that's been sent from one point arrives at its destination without any alteration. It basically makes sure that data remains consistent and accurate. It makes sure that data has not been tampered with in any way. And there are different methods by which we can achieve this. We have hardware maintenance and repairs, and we also have disaster recovery as well, which we'll talk about a bit later as well. So to sum with the necessary clearance. So these three together make up the CIA triad, and it is the backbone of every information security policy or cybersecurity policy of an organization. So the major goal of any cybersecurity, now by ease of access, I'm talking about how easy. Security obviously refers to how well protected computers are or how well protected a network is. So here's the thing, when you efficiency will be improved, but when you have too much to break in and do some serious damage. But then when you have lots of security print scan, maybe they will have to put in a user computer, the networks will become very secure, because imagine they need to be physically present at the place of work in order to get efficiency is reduced, the ease of access is reduced. We intend to be one is to try and find the right balance, so secure to the point where it becomes. Of course, there will be major exceptions, like if the kinds of data or the kinds of information the companies, mid-sized company, information security professional. If you plan on becoming a cybersecurity professional or you just want to improve your overall knowledge or website, all of the images and text and videos that you see on your screen, you have protocols working behind part of the conversation comes at which time and also how the conversation ends. Remember that we're talking about the conversate. So basically, HTTP is the major protocol of the internet. Whenever you go online, whether you're trying to buy something or you're trying to access a website, or even if you're trying to play games online, you have HTTP working behind the scenes. Now, one thing about HTTP that separates it from other protocols out there is that it is referred to as a stateless system. Now, what this means is that whenever your web browser makes a request to a web server, once that request has been opened, whenever again you try to access another website or maybe even another page on the current website. So in such a scenario where connections are dropped, secure version of HTTP. The S just stands for secured. So the one thing that separates HTTPS from HTTP is that with HTTPS, you have something called encryption, which means that all the information and text that you see. So before we move on to other protocols, I wanted to give you real life examples of HTTP and HTTPS in action. Now, right now you can see I'm on the website onepage.tascopedia.com, and you can see that we have this information right here. Now, if I click on it, to this site is right here is HTTP. But take a look and you can also see the message that says secure. Now, whenever you are on a site where sensitive information or PIN numbers or things like that don't have HTTPS, that would be a very bad idea to shop in such a packets layer. And it's used by HTTPS to provide encryption. So whenever you see websites that have the HTTPS protocol, that means that they also have the secure sockets layer, because it's actually to connect to the web server, because it is very, very secure. Now, one thing you should know is that they are technically not protocols. SSL and SS out there, we also have the FTP and SFTP. Now, FTP stands for the File Transfer Protocol, and it governs how files are transmitted from one form of the file transfer protocol. So this will provide encryption and make it more secure against cyber criminals and hackers. And let's also talk about the IMAP and SMTP protocols and received. Now, of course, these aren't all the protocols that exist. There are several ones out there, but the ones we've covered are the major ones that you should know about. So that's it for protocols. Thank you so much for watching the video. I will see you in the next class. Another topic you should be familiar with on. So that's basically what happens. TCP will split up the data into smaller packets. IP will make sure that all those packets are sent to the right destination. And then when all those packets have arrived at the destination, TCP takes over again, and then we on TCP IP. And of course, whenever you're playing video games as well, these are all examples of where the TCP and IP would come into play. So that's it for the TCP IP. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next class. And yes, it's always nice to have those technical being able to get information from people by simply talking to them. Information that they want. So rather than spending days and weeks or even months trying to figure out, now you might be thinking, okay, how does that Becky? So Becky receives this phone call from somebody called Mike who says that they are from IT. And then Mike says, hey Becky, how are you doing today? Good morning. And Becky will be like, hey, good morning, who is this? And then Mike would that the person appeared to be so confident and calm on the phone that she actually trusts the person. Becky goes on to give the person her username and password, and then is back on the network. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day. That in other instances, it could be the hacker actually coming face to face with the person that they actually want to get the information. They go to a bar, they get drunk, and then while the victim is drunk, the person starts pulling out software for our systems every day. We run updates from 8 a.m. to 9, stuff like that. That is social engineering, and it is very, but again, when a hacker is very skilled engineering. So that's it for social engineering. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next class. Obviously, I'm not going to cover every single way I carry it out, but what we're going to cover in this section would be a hack into systems and networks. So you may have cheers. All right, so let's take a look at even PIN numbers, encrypted data, and so on and so forth. Now, the reason why it is a trial and error attack is because it checks all possible key combinations. So you have the hacker who tries every possible combination of a letter, a figure, a symbol, all in an attempt to get the right combination for the password. Now, eventually, the hacker would get the password if he keeps on trying every possible combination. But guess what? It can take years to get the more time it is going to take for a hacker to crack that password. Try to think of the brute force attack in the same way as a burglar trying to break into a safe. Now he knows that there is a combination that needs to be entered for the safe to open, so he begins to try every possible combination. So the more characters that a code or password will have, then the longer it's going to take for the password to be cracked. Same thing with the second character as well. You can either go with lowercase letters or uppercase letters again. So everything equals 62. And finally, that's almost 4,000 guesses. But guess what? With automated software, these can be generated within seconds. There are very powerful software that can generate such number of guesses within seconds. So definitely you should not use 2 characters for your password. Now there is a special kind of brute force attack. They are a combination of uppercase letters, lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols as well. Then you can also restrict the number of times a user can attempt to log in successfully. You may have seen this on many websites already, where you're told you have a maximum of 3 attempts to log in successfully, and then you can enforce a timeout for users who have exceeded that specified number using the brute force attack. So that's it for the brute force attack. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next class. Extremely common in the more access to sensitive information. Now, it is very common with emails. This is the major way how hackers are able to execute phishing attacks through emails. Now, the person doing the phishing who puts some bait around the hook and then puts the hook into the water, hoping that the fish would go for the bait and then in the process get hooked and be caught. Now, it is miss purchases or click here to book 3 weeks free stay at this popular hotel, stuff like that. That's how hackers are able to execute phishing attacks. They usually use them, or they're very popular during popular events and holidays. Now, logos of real companies are often used to fool the victim. So the victim sees a logo from a reputable company like maybe Sony or Amazon. They might they immediately think that, oh, this is just a child website of the major Sony website, so it must be legit. And then, of course, we have the misspelled URLs like Amazon.com. So if the victim isn't very vigilant, they might just see the words Amazon and they might just think, oh, it's Amazon, and then they log in, not knowing that it's actually Amazon and not Amazon.com. So targets. Now, there are attacks that are even more specific, and this would be attacks against senior executives of a company, so that the email appears to have originated from someone other than the actual source. So it's extremely similar to phishing, and in many people even use how vigilant a person is with regarding misspelled URLs and subdomains, well, the better prepared they will be against phishing attacks. Now, use of email filters. There are lots of email filters out there that are able to detect phishing emails and class. Let's talk about bots nets, too very popular too as zombies. Now, the infected computer's performance is usually severely degraded. So many times, if an individual node is actually now part of a botnet, and a botnet, of course, refers to a collection of bots. So when you have multiple bots all under the same control, we refer to that as a botnet. But a DDoS attack is a very powerful attack and often requires thousands and thousands of computers in order to pull off. So botnets are usually the control server, which you can see at the center of the screen. So that's basically how it works. The attacker has complete control over all the bots and can tell these computers to do whatever healings, and updating your antivirus and anti-malware products are easily the two most effective ways of fighting against becoming a bot or part of a botnet. So that's it for bots and botnets. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next class. So let's take a look at two other very popular cyber attacks, the DOS and DDoS attacks, otherwise known as the denial of service and the distributed denial of service attacks. So let's take a look at a very common scenario on a daily basis. You have a web server, in this case right now, the web server for bbc.com. And then you have a computer making a request. Maybe the individual wants to get the content for a particular page, maybe the content for the home page. So the web browser for the individual will make the request saying, hey, give me content. Now the web server for bbc.com would respond in kind saying, well, here you go. Here's the content for the home page. Here's the content for this particular article, right? But now imagine a scenario where this particular individual makes over 100,000 requests, become overwhelmed because of action. The server is going to be knocked out. This is what is referred to as a denial of service attack, where an attacker sends so much traffic, so many requests to a server, knocking the server out in the process. Now with a distributed DNS computer making the request, you now have thousands and thousands of computers all over the world making those requests at the same time. So it's a lot bigger in scale and it's a lot more difficult to combat against. DDoS attacks are very difficult to combat against. Now, DDoS attacks are often distributed using botnets. That's usually the major way how hackers are able to make such requests from thousands by so much bandwidth that it becomes more difficult for them to inundate the web servers. Now, this wouldn't exactly stop or prevent a DDoS attack. It will simply make it more difficult for the attackers to inundate the web servers because there is now a lot more bandwidth. Now, creating a DDoS place, directing the company on what to do when there is a DDoS attack. And finally, calling a DDoS specialist. There are companies who specialize fighting against DDoS attacks. We have Akamai and we also have Cloudflare. So that's it for the DOS and DDoS attacks. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next class. All right, so we just talked about the denial of service attack and the distributed server. And I wanted to quickly show you an example of such a useless traffic, and that would be the ping traffic. Now, you may already know what a ping is, but if you don't, well, a ping is simply a network command. It's used to determine whether or not a particular server is working, if it's online. So basically what you would do is, as an example, if you are Windows key and R, I'm going to type in CMD, and this is going to bring me to the command prompt, as you can see right now. So typically, if I wanted to find out if CNN.com. Press enter. Now you can see that we have reply, 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 reply. Sometimes it may not be the website that has the problem, but you. There might be something wrong with your own connectivity. So one of the ways how network administrators test is using the ping command. They will try to ping the website's address and then see if there's sent out a ping. So what happened right here was that the web server for CNN had to respond saying, yes, I'm alive, I'm online. I sent out tons and tons of ping requests. So that's it for the ping. Hopefully you've learned something new. To learning more, you can come down here to Wikipedia. There is a very good article about the ping, the networking utility, which is ping. It's a little bit cool. So how far you are from Wikipedia. I'll see you in the next class. So let's talk about another major attack, which is the man in the middle attack. Now, what happens here is, imagine a scenario where we have two computers interacting with one another. You have them exchanging data and information. Everything is going smoothly until we now have a hacker who is able to position themselves virtually in between both computers, and they're able to intercept the messages being transmitted from computer one to the actual legitimate source or the intended target of the message. And an example here would be the attacker being able to impersonate the IP addresses of all the computers involved. Now, it is very common with on-sale accounts of several companies, so they were able to impersonate the companies, send out emails to clients and customers, who then send them money, thinking that the emails came from the real companies, not knowing that they came from the hackers. So that's it for the Meet Mars, the man in the middle attack. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next class. Let's take a look at one more time for database management and data manipulation. All right. So SQL can be used to query, to update data, modify data, or even insert data into a database. That's primarily what SQL is used for. Now, in an SQL injection attack, the attacker or the hacker will execute malicious SQL commands in order to corrupt a database. That's the primary objective behind an SQL injection attack. Now, such an attack can provide the attacker with unauthorized access to very valuable information such as usernames, passwords. So in such a scenario where the attacker has gained control, he could decide this. So very often, whenever a penetration tester has been hired by a company to test how strong or how weak their database is, usually Havage would be the software used for such a purposes. So very popular software with SQL injections, Havage. Now, a very similar attack to the SQL injection attack is the cross-site scripting attack, otherwise known as the XSS attack. The difference, though, is the target. In an SQL injection attack, you have the attacker going up against a database. In an XSS attack, you have the attacker attacking a website now or a web application. Now, such an attack isn't aimed at a victim directly, but at the website that the victim would actually visit. And then when they visit that website or they use that web application, a website using malicious scripts of code. So combating SQL attacks, well, there are three major ways how this can be done. One will be to limit database privileges, which means that you basically limit the power or the amount of things people can do from the databases. You have a much better chance of fighting against SQL and even XSS attacks. So that's it for the SQL injection attack. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next class. worms, trojans, spyware. These terms are collectively referred to what we generally refer to as a malware. And as I said earlier, viruses and trojans, how they operate and also how they can be defeated. So I hope you have a lot of fun, and I will see you at the end of the section. Bye. Systems as well. Now, there is a major difference between viruses and worms, and that is the fact that while a virus would require an active host and is self-replicating and self-propagating. Now, what this means that a worm or worms can spread themselves without any goes from being developed to actually causing harm on a. That's typically how, and then they will spread infected websites and flash drives. The major ways how viruses are, many viruses can remain dormant until the infected file has actually happened on a system. Say for example, a virus could be written to become active only can be, and then once they're active, the virus goes on to cause destruction. That's basically how, though they are more advanced, the way how worms are able to enter themselves and then spread a unit. Go ahead and see matrix. Going back to viruses again, worms, 99% of the time worms are for example, you could have some viruses that are purely destructive. Their intent, their objectives that want to slow down system performance. So they're not really destroying files. In fight against viruses and worms would be the use of antivirus and anti-malware email attachments. Still one of the most popular ways how worms in particular of viruses and worms on any computer system or network system. All right, so I'm going to titled Troy. I want you to sit
At the bottom of the sea, this is a gift.
All right, so welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the clip. If you've seen the movie before, looking at the huge wooden horse, here's what the Greeks did. They knew very well that the Trojans were very superstitious people. They believed in gods and gifts, and then they hid a few of them. This must be a gift from the gods. Let's take it into our city. So they dragged the horse into the city, not knowing that Greek soldiers were inside. Giving us this huge gift. End of the movie. Well, the Greeks are in the world of IT security and in fighting against the Trojans. That is, appear to be legitimate. They appear to be. All right, and so Trojans, what exactly are they? Well, this will make them incredibly destructive. Now, in terms of how destructive Trojans can be, well, there are four major types of Trojans that you should be aware to control it. So basically, a backdoor allows a hacker to penetrate into a computer and then take control of that computer system. We also have the info stealer and then go on to download additional viruses and ROMs to even make things more destructive for that particular computer system or network. And finally, we also have the Trojans. Well, the best way would be to use anti-malware products. This is basically one of the best ways how you can fight against Trojans. And of course, you can also run updates whenever they are available. Download files from unscrupulous websites. So that's it for Trojans. Thank you for watching. And of course, I'll see you in the next class. So let's talk about adware. Hey, you're the proud winner of. So you might find some other ads that will promise you that if you take a certain adware. So what exactly is adware? Well, adware would be a program that displays because the developer or whoever wrote that program or software would like to recover some of the costs that it took him or her or them to use the product for free, but then you also have the adware installed on your computer system as well. That's basically why adware is included within our keyboard. The keylogger will record every single keystroke that is made, and data can then be sent back to hackers who can then get credit card information, passwords to scan your computer system, make sure that there ain't any ad or spyware, malware running on your computer system. Let's talk about one of the absolute worst forms of malware. Now, you may have seen an image like this before where basically a computer system is infected, and that's the general idea behind ransomware. Now, ransomware can prevent you from using your PC you have, making it extremely difficult to fight against ransomware. Now, it can spread from you, they will attack you, and they will try to make money from you. They don't care all files and continue using their system. how time has changed since then. Now, numerous variants of email links are one of the primary ways how malware in general spreads to computers, affected all computers in 150 ability in the Windows operating system to exploit computer came out in early 2014 with itself. Now, it also used something message is written in a certain language. Fully understand that language, be the ones to be affected by the ransomware rather than people from its. Loki extorted over $17,000 from a hospital in Hollywood. Targets anyone and everyone. They got over $17,000 from a hospital in Hollywood, and since then, and finally, we have a service in underground forums, the CTP Locker, emerging in early 2014. Now, only 42% of the ransomware victims were able to recover their data even after making payment. So let's talk about the find them or remove them entirely. And of course, never open spam. Use an antivirus. So thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next class. So we have already talked about all the major types of malware out there. We've talked about viruses, malware of all to detect and remove. And one of the key features of rootkits is that they make the most malicious of viruses out there look like an essential file, and then it will fool the antivirus into thinking that such files are actually legitimate. Now, they are activated even before your computer has finished booting. The rootkit is already working once that system is infected. So you can see why there is no software available out there that can guarantee you 100% that the rootkit has been removed. The safest way would be to completely wipe out the hard drive, or in fact use a brand new hard drive and just discard the hard drive that's been infected by the rootkit. So let's talk about a browser hijacker, which is not as malicious as the other malware we've talked about. In fact, this is very similar to an adware. They basically hijack the victim's browser. And what this means is that they can redirect victims to specific pages. A classic example is when you set your home page to be you are redirected to a different website. Now, the intention behind browser hijackers is to make you track usage habits. So again, these aren't exactly the most malicious forms. They would actually turn off any real security software that is available. For malware, thank you for watching. I will see you in the next class. All right, so welcome to a new section where I'm going to do my best to explain them to you in the best at the beginning of the next section. Cheers. Most popular ways of protecting systems against viruses and hackers And we're talking about the antivirus. So what exactly is an antivirus? Well, an antivirus is a software that is used to protect a computer from malware. This is about the simplest explanation one can give as to what an antivirus is. But how exactly does an antivirus work? How does an antivirus identify a virus? Well, there are basically two ways, and the very first one will be to use something called signatures. Now, a signature refers to a pattern of data or behavior that is known to be related to an already identified malware. Now, take a look at this here, the source code of the file to what it has in its dictionary. If there is a match, that means that that file is a valid methods. It's very often correct. One should take note of that. All right, so what exactly do we have under the antivirus operations? Well, we have on access scanning, where the antivirus constantly checks every file or program that is less resources. Some antiviruses would use lots of system resources like the processor, the memory, while others would not use quite as much. So that's basically an introduction to antivirus software and how they work. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next class. So what exactly is encryption? Well, make crypto means hidden or secret. So encryption, in other words, is all about, would also use a key to unlock the cipher and then make it accessible, the study or science concerned with secret communication. Encrypting, while symmetric, uses just one key. So let's take a look at a typical example of an asymmetrical encryption. So let's say the sender on the left wants to send a message to the encryption standard, otherwise known as the DES, and the advanced encryption standard, otherwise known as in the next class. So let's talk about the very next security measure, and that is going to be firewalls, a very popular term in the world of IT and cybersecurity. But what exactly is have a local network for a company? We have computers, we have printers, and then to the left, we do have the internet, the world out there with other computers, other devices, and basically there's a fork. It is because there is a firewall preventing them from doing so. So how exactly do firewalls work? Well, there are three ways how they work, and the very first one, which is the most basic of them all, would be packet filtering. What happens here is that the firewall inspects each packet of data. The firewall has a filtering table where it has all the conditions listed. So if the packet of data matches any one of the conditions in its filtering table, depending on how the firewall has been configured, it can either allow the packet of data to go through or it will refuse that packet of data. Next would be the proxy service, where the firewall simply stands in between two systems or more and simply acts as the intermediary. So whenever a system, what happens here is that the firewall actually tracks the state of a connection between systems. So it checks to see the kinds of data passing through. It checks to see a firewall, which could be a standalone application or simply part of a security application like an antivirus. So many times you see antiviruses that claim that they have firewalls that come with them. That is true. Many times we do have antiviruses and anti-malware products that also have a firewall program built into them as well. So that's it for firewalls. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next class.
Because it's protected by gate and the step beyond vision. These cameras actually know how he walks and his facial.
So no mark.
Whether it was actually the right individual or an impersonator. And of course, you saw hilariously at the end, the system was in action. So what exactly is biometrics? Biometrics is a security mechanism used to authenticate and provide access based on the verification identifiers. We have the physiological characteristics, which would refer to the shape or composition of the body. And then we have the behavioral characteristics, which would refer to things like your fingerprints, your DNA, your retina scans, your face, your hand was walking. All right, now biometrics in general will involve a database that stores the biometric data for comparison. So every individual that is supposed to have access will already have their fully things have gotten cheaper, and as a result, it's becoming increasingly common. You can even see nowadays on many laptops that will watching. I will see you in the next class.
All locked down. The only them into the out deactivated by a
So the clip you just watched was from the movie Mission Impossible, starring Tom Cruise. And what we saw there was an individual trying to gain access into a particular room. And in order to do so, he had to first of all go through multiple checkpoints. First of all, he had to use a key card in order to gain access into that particular room. Now we already know the voice scan and the retinal other things like a passcode and a key card like we saw in that scene. Then you have multi-factor authentication. Here, a user provides 2 authentication factors to verify who they are. Now, this, of course, his voice print and, of course, his eye scan as well. Now, from the clip, even though, let's take, for example, with the 2-factor authentication, using 2 factors from the same category would not username. You have to provide a password. They both still fall under the same category, which is the knowledge factor, and as a result, such would be the single process authentication factor method. Now, in the clip, even though the man did 4 things, 2 of them belonged to the same category, which was the inherence factor, talking about the retina scan and the voice prints. So that was 1 factor. Then we had the knowledge factor where he had to provide the 6-digit code, which are related to the possession factor, would include things like tokens, smart cards, smartphones, and so on and so forth. Now, overall, specifically with the 2-factor authentication, it does improve security, but it's not foolproof because cards could be stolen, fingerprints could even be lifted as well. This can include 2 more factors like a time and location factor. So in addition to the inherence factor, the knowledge factor, and the possession factor, an individual could be required to be at a specific place at a specific time in order to gain access to certain information. So that's it for the factor authentication methods. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next class. So let's take a look at two other ways of protecting networks from cyber criminals, and we're talking about honeypots and DMZs. So what exactly is a honeypot? Well, a honeypot is a computer system or network that acts as a decoy in order to lure cyber criminals. So the main objective here is to study the attempts by the cyber criminals to gain unauthorized access. So basically, you have the honeypot, the cyber criminals see it, they think it's a real target, they begin trying. Well, let's start off with the research honeypot. Now, research honeypots are run to enable the close analysis of how attacks develop and progress in order to be able to learn how these hackers are actually going about their business. Hacker attracted or distracted rather, that's why they tend to put out real resources. They would actually put out some real information in such honeypots to keep the hacker right there while they can actually go on to patch the networks. So it's basically a barrier between the real local area network of a company or a business and the outside network, the outside world, basically the internet. So you have external face, we have the internet, the outside world on the left, and then you have the local area network of a company or a business or an office to the right. Now, in between these two firewalls, you have a firewall facing the internet, right? But you also have another firewall facing the local area network. So in between these two firewalls, you have your demilitarized zone. This is where you have your servers that would act as a sort of a barrier between the outside world and the internal local area network of a company or a business. So the real objective behind DMZs is to add an additional layer. I'll see you in the next class. So let's take a brief look at wireless security. Now, wireless security obviously is the prevention of unauthorized access or damage to computers using wireless networks. And these days, most of our connections tend to be wireless, whether it's our internet connectivity at the office, maybe it's how we connect to the internet via our phone and mobile devices at home. Most of the connections are wireless. Security standard is still widely used. So if you're using web for any one of your wireless networks, be sure to change to WPA. So let's take a look at WPA. This was developed by Wi-Fi Alliance, which is a non-profit organization. Now with WPA, massive security improvements were made over the web with 256-bit encryption keys. So WPA is a much stronger way of protecting your wireless networks over WEP, and it was superseded by the WPA2 in 2006. So WPA2 is a stronger version of the WPA. So that's security for wireless networks in brief. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next class. So let's talk about the oldest forms, and it looks like we're still going to be using passwords for biometrics continues to make advancements. People can eye scan and things like that to get, at least passwords will still play a very important role in routine. And by now you should know the internet. When you're asked to create an account, very often have a password strength meter to tell you all this is for your own good. It's for the good of the website as well, because they want people to have secured accounts. So really, when it comes to creating a strut, 7 should be the minimum, and figures and letters, and make sure hashtag or the @ symbol. So when you combine some of the latest software that we have today, and of course the reason is because of security, over and over again. So you might be a specialist in some company or whatever, you might notice such policies in place where they have to change their same password over and over again for different websites. Use such a password. Go to Twitter, if you have Twitter, of course, they can read your for your bank, other things like that. So it's a very good idea to use different passwords for different. You use another password for your social media. Your password is 8 characters and 6 characters in between, right? And then the first character will represent that particular website. So other tools out there on the internet that would help you remember your passwords. An example is Dashlane. Dashlane is supposed to be this very secure software which once you've created your account, Dashlane would store the password for you. So you don't have to remember the password anymore. As long as you have Dashlane installed and running on your computer, Dashlane will be able to remind you of that. Is that you are now putting your security into you'll be in trouble. So it really depends on how you want to go about this. My constant recommendation would be for different websites, and even if you're hacking accounts all over the internet. So that's big. We're still going to be using passwords for a while, so it is important, and also password management in general. Have you ever D? Well, if you haven't, it refers to employees are able to do their work on their all documents that they're working on at work to their laptops, iPads, and so on and so forth. So it is improved because people can now work in a bus going home and they can still send emails to. On here though is the fact that it opens up new in place that belong to the employees. It's their work. But in many companies, they don't even think about such things. They just allow their employees. Some like the major risk with the BYOD phenomenon, with the BYOD policy, being able to allow your employees to work at the same time, it also opens up a new gateway and the major con associated with it. So in the very next video, I am going to walk you through a few policies that many companies now put in place to minimize the security risks. As of course, I will see you in the next class. Right, so let's take a look at a sample bring your own device policy. And I really don't know if you intend on becoming a security specialist, but nevertheless, it's a good idea to have a basic understanding of how policies are written and to see an example of one of them. But before we actually list out the steps involved in this policy, there are two things that needs to be addressed by the BYOD policy. And the very first one is it must address both the concerns of the company and the employees. The concern of the company being the fact that new security vulnerabilities might be created as a result of employees being able to take work home. But the employees themselves also have issues between security and ease of access. You want to make sure that the policy addresses all the security concerns, but at the same time, you also want the policy to be able to allow the employees to work effectively with their mobile devices. So let's take a look at a be encrypted so that if it's stolen, well, no one will be able to access their personal information, stuff like that. Next will now be to deploy mobile device management. So once you've covered all the basics, now you can begin to get technical. And we will talk about the mobile device management in the very next class, in the very next video. But basically in here, you can now start getting technical. You can say, okay, the hard drives for the laptops or maybe even the memory cards for the phones, we can partition them into two. One will be specifically for the personal data, like pictures, videos, files, and stuff like that, or personal data, one for the work data. Next up, you can now begin to enforce the use of strong passwords, anti-malware, and also the automatic lockup after periods, regardless of what they are, have some form of updated anti-malware as well. And then you can establish protocols for lost or stolen devices. What happens if a policy affects everyone in the company? So you need to bring in as many people as possible. IT would be great, of course. Risk management would be a great department. And of course, the legal counsel, very, very important. You want to make sure that whatever laws or rules you are stating in your policies and protocols, no security policy is going to last forever. In fact, sometimes security policies need to be updated every week, every month to company data. So the policies need to be constantly updated to meet the demands of the technology of the workplace. So that's it for a sample BYOD policy. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next class. So the major goal of any action would be to find the right balance between or people in general to be able to access their files. So here's the thing: when you have way too much ease of access, because you should have things like passwords in place on other security at checkpoint serious damage. But then when you have lots of security, let's say for example an employee to do a fingerprint scan, maybe they will might even have to say something so that the system recognizes their voice. Yes, the computer, the networks will become very secure. Unfortunately, they'll get work done because okay, they may not be able to clearance to be able to access the files or data that they might need. Too much security is that efficiency is reduced and they are not so secure to the point where it becomes really difficult for employees to be able to. Major exceptions, like if the kinds of data or the kinds of information the employees are supposed to work on are but for most companies, mid-size of access and the security so that employees, the computers and networks are also well protected. So that's the security professional or information security professional. So the weakest link in any to the hands of a bad guy. Well, the employees in particular are very, very dangerous. That's kind of one of the reasons before they fire the employee, they or she isn't going to have any access to the computers or the networks after they have been fired, because there have been so many stories and so many people who got fired. These are two things to keep in mind if you are working in a company. So that's it. Thank you for watching, and of course I will see you in the next class. So welcome to this brand new cyber warfare, and yes, war is here. And in case you had some attacks against the infrastructures of several countries, we've had quite a few of them that have happened, and we'll talk about. Believe that in the future, well, God forbid, nobody wants wars, but people cyber warfare will play a key role, because a country that has very powerful of the country they're fighting against, because many people perform their banking transactions online, get the information online. So one of the key ways how a country would attack another country, I've heard of the Secretary of Defense talking about how the United States need to take cybersecurity very seriously, because the power grids, the water system. So welcome to this new section once again, and let's take a look at a few examples of cyber warfare that we've had in the past. So let's talk about the very first major cyber attack that ever happened against a country's infrastructure, and I'm talking about 2006. And before I tell you what the attack was about, let me just give you a hint, and maybe you can already identify the kind of Estonia. And it is believed that it was Russia that was behind. People in Estonia could not use the internet effectively. They were unable to communicate. To compound this problem, Estonia back then was actions in Estonia. People read all the news was done online. So Estonia was all about internet. That Estonia was under a massive DDoS attack. Now the reason why Tallinn being the capital of Estonia, army out of Estonia, the Russian soldiers erected this big statue to commemorate all the Russian soldiers. Saw that statue as a symbol of oppression. Moving out, the Russian soldiers started to act more as is still a symbol of oppression, and we need to carry it out. Before that was done, the Russian government, there was a lot of controversy online, especially in chat forums. Lots of people were out there saying, hey, this is bad, we attack Estonia, we're going to perform a denial of service attack against them. Government sponsored most of all this cyber attack. No one really knows, because many times, like I've said earlier, DDoS attacks tend to be carried out by hackers. It's not right. We need to do something against Estonia. So once they discover that, hey, we can't access our websites from Egypt or Vietnam, like people in such, they immediately realize that, okay, it's a DDoS attack to combat against the based in Estonia. However, they could not websites based in Estonia. So basically, Estonia, that in itself was very scary, because people from Estonia could not inform. So this became one of the very first major a country's infrastructure. So if you're interested, security specialists were able to take down the botnets. So that's it for the attack against Estonia. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next class. So now let's talk about what is arguably the most powerful cyber attack against a country's attack of the year 2010. Now, uranium, so that they can have a nuclear program. Now, because of the nature of the Stuxnet attack, of Israel and the United States who launched this attack against Iran. So what exactly was Stuxnet? Well, Stuxnet was designed specifically. I don't know much about how to enrich uranium. I'm not a nuclear science specialist, but I do know that centrifuges plays that controlled centrifuges, and people believe that it was state sponsored. They believe that it was the United States and Israel behind it. So Stuxnet, like I said, was alive. So someone got Stuxnet into their USB, they plugged it into one of the computers at the nuclear facility, and it started attacking systems that controlled. This been a very powerful cyber attack against Iran's nuclear facilities. No one had to invade Iran. All they had to do was to invent this particular Stuxnet worm, get it into a USB hard drive, plug that USB hard drive into a computer, and the damage was already done at that point. So Stuxnet was a clear reminder of just how powerful cyber weapons. Again, no one has actually proven that to do. So as usual, if you're more interested in the attack, I would highly recommend you continue to do some more research online about it. Now, aware that you believe only X out other cyber attackers and regular fight and use it to their own advantage. So of cyber weapons is that it could fall into the hands of cyber criminals who could. And thank you for watching. I will see you in the next class. Let's talk about one of the greatest cyber attacks against a company, and I'm talking about the attack against 15 and this of one of the most controversial movies of the with the graphic of a red skeleton with gun sound. So naturally, Sony's IT staff was brought into play, but before they could pull the plug, the malware. Now, to make sure nothing could be recovered, the attackers also attached a very special reduced using things like fax machines, communicating through posted messages, using blackboards, and they even had to pay their employees using paper checks. To make actually stole it, they downloaded all the data and then these confidential files and data into public, and also more than 47,000 social security numbers, and even 4 of unreleased Sony films were leaked to piracy websites for free viewing as well. So really, a week later, after the studio was forced to announce that it would make the movie available to the North Korean government, because again, the attack coincided with the dictator over there. So in the real world, the North Korean government did not appreciate such a movie, and they even ended up denying the work of supporters of the attack. So the weakest link in any security system would be because as a cybersecurity professional or someone who a company, there is only so much that little that you can do about that. Imagine an employee who is so careless they write their password on a piece. What are you going to do about that? And disgruntled employees in particular are very kind of one of the reasons why many times at the workplace, whenever access to the computers or the networks anymore, so they would have changed or they would have done everything to ensure that such a person would not be able to access the computers or the networks after they have been fired. Also, obviously, the most dangerous threat to any security system would be a disgruntled. That's it. Thank you for watching, and of course, I will see you in the next class. Let's talk about is the myth of I'm not rich, because they're not famous or because they don't have the hacking them. Nothing could be further from the truth. And yes, the rich and famous hacked. There are different ways how cyber information that they can get from you. So whether it's your password, access to your email accounts, your social security number, or even just making use of your complete person, or because you don't own Amazon. Therefore, listen, installing one security application, there is no one magical application out there or this magic, whether it's not clicking on suspicious links in your email to protect yourself and your data from hackers. Now, myth number 3, which is very similar to myth number 2, is the myth of yes, having a strong password definitely helps. Strong passwords can be cracked. So there you have the opportunity to employ more than one authentication method. Go ahead and do so. Do not think that because you have a strong password, then you're fine. You're perfectly safe. No, the strongest of passwords can be cracked as well. Now, myth number 4, it's fine. Your friends are your friends. You trust them. And yes, they probably will never send you any malicious links on purpose. However, how can you be certain that this email that you got from your friend, that email accounts can be compromised, they can be hijacked? And so whenever you receive emails from your friends that seem to be saying, hey, did you send me this email with that link? What does that link is? The myth of I don't visit on safe websites. So as a result, yes, not visiting on safe websites definitely that you think are safe are actually safe. How do I drive safely on the road? Therefore, I am never going to get certain that people that you drive with on the road, the other drivers who have thousands and thousands of friends on social media, search to them before they just receive a friend request and then they accept. Listen, if you're one of such people, you need social media. They get to know their target, they get to know the friends of the target, they get to find out all. You need to be very, very careful about the kinds of people that you add, get hacked, or you have a malware that's infected your system. Get steps to prevent this from happening. No, sometimes you might get infected and you may not even know. You can have some of them just working quietly behind the scenes, which is why you need to take steps to protect any other myths that you want to talk about that you know of. And as always, I will see you in the next class. Congratulations, you've come to the end of the course, and I truly your expectations were met. I hope that you've learned a lot. If you're interested in becoming a cybersecurity professional, are you like concepts of cybersecurity and information security? Well, I truly hope and believe that this course helped you even took this course. So I really want to add some positive manner. I really would encourage you to write a written review. Reviews matter a lot to me, and I would really appreciate it if you ways for me to improve this course. Maybe you feel there are certain topics I should have covered which I didn't. Please feel free to back. So thank you so much once again for being a student and whatever it is that you intend on doing. Thank you so much, and all the best of luck. Bye bye.